Hi, I'm Kathy from Eclectic Images and welcome to Crafting with Kathy. Today I'm going to be using our Petal set stamps with a couple of other stamps and the beautiful Versamagic Chalk inks, which give you a lovely soft fresco look. So what we're going to be working with is our Petal set, which comes in two sizes. We'll be working today with the Petal set small, also some flower centres and a lovely quote, all the flowers. So it's all the flowers of all the tomorrows are in the seeds of today. How beautiful is that? So, and it's just a really nice font, so that's going to work beautifully on our card. Now the Petal set does come in two sizes, so it comes as a larger set or a smaller set. And what's a bit odd about these stamp sets is that they come with all the petals separate. Let's look at both of them. So you've got the smaller size, the bigger size. The bigger size also has a little bit to pop in the centre there that you can emboss. Okay, so what this means is that you can actually stamp your flower almost any way you want it. It can have 8 petals like this, it can have 6 petals, 5 petals to be poinsettia, something like that. You can also make it work on different size canvases by how much you either compress the petals or spread them out. So one sample of this is on a scrapbooking layout where I've actually spread the petals out. Just wait for Matthew to be able to get a nice look. So I've actually stamped and cut those petals, those flowers out, but I've spread the base layer quite wide to make my flower look a lot bigger, and then with the next layer I've actually stamped them a bit closer together, so you get two, almost looking like you've got two different size petals. And then on this one we've added some punch flowers to it as well. So you can make the flower whatever size you want, as well as changing the patterns that you're using on it, and this changes the look of the flower as well. So we actually have, and you can see this better on the packaging of the big one, so as well as we have a solid stamp, we have an outline of the petal edge, then we have a dotty background, a script one, a swirls, and a swirls with dots. So it gives you 4 different patterns that you can use over the top of your solid image. So let's do some stamping and see how all that works together. Now the inks that we're using, as I said, are the lovely Versamagic Chalk inks. These come in 2 different sizes. We're working today with the Pixie Dust, the Pink Petunia, and the Perfect Plumeria, and they come in 2 sizes, the Dewdrop or the full-size pad. Now I usually work with the full-size pads. The Dewdrops are just as easy to use, and that's what we normally stock because it's easier for people to build up a range of colours with purchasing the smaller size pads, but we can stock either. Okay, and I've chosen 3 colours that all coordinate together. So on our basic card, I'm going to start off stamping our saying, all the flowers saying first, because I want to then build the card around that. Now the nice thing about the Versamagic Chalk inks is they're a pigment ink. They have chalk in them, which is what gives them the soft fresco-y look, but they also are a detailed ink, so they'll pick up the detail of your fine stamps, and they stamp script stamps really well, they stamp outlines well, and they'll stamp solid stamps well. And I'll show you a few tricks that you can do with them with solid stamps that you can't do with other dye inks. It's because this is a pigment ink that you can get more effects with it. So let's start with stamping our saying. Now it is a very squishy pad. It's a foam one and very squishy, and this has been recently re-inked, so it's quite juicy. So I'm just applying with a really gentle tap. The last thing you want to do with a soft foam pad is get your stamp and press it into the pad. It will just get ink all over the backing area and just waste your ink. So I'm just making sure I've got good coverage there by tapping over the whole stamp several times. Look at whereabouts on my card I want it to go, and hopefully getting my script fairly straight. Of course, if I don't, I can always trim the card back so that it makes it straight. There's all sorts of ways we can get around what could be called mistakes, but it's usually just different ways of being creative. So you can see that gorgeous, soft, floaty sort of script. Okay, so that was the darker Perfect Plumeria that we used. Now we're going to start building up some petals. So I'm going to use the just the solid one first, and we'll use it with a soft ink. Now one thing that you can do with a chalk pad that you can't do with a die pad is you can just ink part of it and get this really soft look. I don't know whether Matthew can zoom in because it's a very soft colour. But normally, if you did that with a dye ink, you'd have lines where the ink finished. But with the chalk inks, it gives you this beautiful graduated look. Okay, so let's do that on our card for some of our petals. So I'm just sort of rolling the stamp around the edge of it rather than trying to ink up the whole flower. And I'm going to want to stamp about 3 flowers in here. Let's start with the first one. So you can see it gives a really soft look to it. I'm going to overlap the petals a little bit in the centre. And we're just going to go for 6 petals today. And I will turn my card around so that I stamp at an easy angle for me. Hopefully you can still see what I'm doing. Now the pixie dust that I'm using is a really soft pink. You'll see as we do other colours why I've gone with a soft one to start with. Now let's stamp in our other petals. So let's have one. Here's me working this out as I go along. I'll put one over here. You'll notice that where the stamps are overlapping in the middle, you get a little bit of a darker shadow. That's fine, because we can cover that up later with some other stamping. But it also shows an effect that you can get with the chalk inks, where if you stamp with the same colour, you'll actually get a darker image the second time, which can be used for wonderful effects. Okay, let's do another one up here. I might make this one a 5 petal. I'm going to let it just run off the edge of the card. So that's how our card is going to start building up its layers. That's our very first layer with the solid. Now I'm changed to the pink Petunia. And I will change my background stamp to the script background. And now we're going to stamp over the top of what we've already done. And you'll start to see how you build up these gorgeous little petals. And I think I will continue that background on the other flowers, but actually I'm going to change inks. I'm going to go back to the pixie dust and keep those other flowers really, really soft. So I'm just going to give that stamp a quick clean. Now this is where you'll see that it will, by doing a second layer, even though it's the same colour, it'll come out darker and we'll still be able to see our pattern. Now it's partly because this is the effect that the ink has when you double layer it, but also it's because I inked the solid stamp very softly, whereas I'm inking this one a bit more thoroughly. Over our other flower. Now it's such a soft, pretty look. If you don't line up your petals exactly, it's not a major stress. Your card is still going to look beautiful. So you can see the difference. Again, I'll get Matthew to do a little bit of a zoom in for us. You'll see the difference where we've just done 2 layers of the pixie dust compared with where we've done the pixie dust and the pink Petunia. So just bringing this one in a little bit deeper, it's going to make it more of a feature. Now with the smaller flowers, I'm just going to use a flower center, which is in this set, the flower center set. And I'm going to use this with the I'm going to use it with the pink Petunia. And just make a center to those more background flowers. Now for our main flower, I actually want to build up something a bit more 3D. So what I'm going to do, you can either do this with punching, and I actually made these sets that they would go very well with these daisy punches. Now this is one from EK Success. I don't know if it actually is still made anymore. Stamping Up certainly for a while had a similar one. I know punching isn't as fashionable now as it was, but a lot of us still have them around. And so this flower works. Let me just wipe some dust off that and drop it on the floor. So we'll keep going. I can punch it again. Okay. So it just punches out a flower like that. The other thing that we can do to create our 3D flowers, we can certainly cut them out by hand, but I really don't like cutting unless I absolutely have to. I much prefer to die cut or punch. So the other one I've done is actually using the Paper Roses. Now this is the Poinsettia, Christmas Poinsettia flower set. And I've just die cut out the middle size there, and I've also die cut the smaller centerpiece, and we're going to use those. So die cutting or punching is a great way of making our center flowers. And I'll just show you, I'm just going to digress for a moment and show you one where I did hand cut the flower. So this is one I did the other day, and I've used the other two stamps in the range, so the dotty background and the dotty swirl, and I've gone with some purple tones on this one. So here I stamped the flower, the 8 points, and then cut it out by hand. So I do find it much easier to do it with punches, but you can do it by hand if you want to. So to colour our flower, I'm going to go back to our pixie dust, shall I? No, let's head into Pink Petunia and start going deeper. I've just given myself too many options today, so I'm making up my mind as I go along. So let's ink up our background stamp, and now I'm going to stamp, and you might think that you stamp the petal in the petal shape, but it's actually easier if you stamp the point of the petal into the centre of the flower. Turn your flower around a bit and just keep repeating that. The main thing you want to make sure is that the whole body of the petal gets covered by the stamp. It's actually created quite an interesting pattern in the middle there. And then we could take our smaller, either punched version or die cut version, and apply a little bit of ink to that as well. Now I'm just going to do this actually with a brush. So I'm just picking up a little bit of ink with a number 8 size Future round brush, and we're just going to tap it onto that one. Now if we're doing it with our punches, I could then change to a medium punch in the daisy punches. Let's see if I can fit that, get that onto our bit of card. If anyone's noticing when I turn the card over, I'm using a little bit of a sample piece that I was doing some other experimenting on. So just showing how you can use all your offcuts. Now with the tinier daisy, I do find I'm using the Cotton Blend 210 GSM Cotton Blend card for doing my stamping on. I love working on that with most inks that I use, but I do find that the smaller size punches, because it's a 210 GSM card, they don't like punching through it. So that's when I'll switch to just a basic bit of white cardstock just to get my tiny flower. So I could ink up these flowers the same as I've done with the die cut. I could ink those up with a brush, or this size you can certainly ink it up with the stamp, or we could just ink those with a brush and then layer them up. And that is what I've done on this one here. I've used the punched flower in the middle, and then I've actually finished this one off with some liquid pearls in the middle and some glossy accents to give that flower a beautiful glaze. You can see it picking up the light. Okay, let's keep going with this one now. So we've got our center flower ready that we're going to build up, and then we've got our extra bit that we're going to pop in the middle of it. But before we start putting those on, let's give those full time to dry, and we're going to play around with our background a little bit more. Let me just clean that brush off a little bit, because I'm going to use the Pink Petunia colour first. And I'm going to use, for building up some background, I'm going to use a stencil out of the Colourburst BeeArty range. And this one's script and grungy bits. So making sure I put the script up the right way for, it's no good me doing the script across that way if my card's going to go this way, isn't it? Okay, let's place that on, and I'm just going to use my brush, pick up some of the pink Petunia and just shade it through. And it's just going to give us some soft background stuff happening in there. And we'll do some down this edge. Maybe a bit more of the script. So gorgeous inks for stenciling and backgrounds. Now I've gone really soft in the top corner there. Now I'll go back to the Perfect Plumeria and just shade around the whole edge of the card. I'm doing this now rather than later because once I've layered on the center parts and put on some glitter and liquid pearls and things, it's going to be wet for a while. So that's why I'm getting my background card all ready first. Remembering a class that I did once on doing layered backgrounds with different stencils over the top of each other. I might have to do that as a YouTube one because that was great with the chalk inks. Now that's just, you can just see how you can just build up some background interest there. Cool. Okay, let's go back to our little flowers, and we're going to pick up, we coloured this medium-sized one with the pink Petunia, so I'll go to the Perfect Plumeria to do some stamping, and we used our script for the background, so I'm going to change to the swirls. Just check I've got the one I wanted. Yep, the swirls for our detail on this one. So let's ink up gently. Remember, just tap gently, do not push your stamps into the ink pad because it's just going to over ink your stamps and get things smudgy and messy. So you see that's got that beautiful little just delicate swirl happening there. I think Matthew's going to do a bit of a zoom in for us. There he goes. Really pretty. Now let's just continue that around the flower. Now the one trick to be careful of is do try and make sure that as much as you can, that you don't get what I just did there, which I'm actually glad I did it so I can show you. Try not to get the line of the outline of the petal of the stamp coming onto the petal. Try and get the whole petal within the image part, which means don't be scared and hold back here. Push the stamp right into the center of the flower, and that way you'll get a much better coverage of the petal without getting any lines on it. Okay, now we start shaping. So I'm going to just use a mat, a squishy mat, and a few shaping tools. Let's pop our ink pads to one side. While that one dries, I'm just going to do the smaller one. So let's bring our squishy pad in, and just using a stylus, I'm just going to go around the outside and just bring that one up a little bit, just bring those fronds up. Now, I promised Matthew I wasn't going to use a heat gun today, but I just want to make sure that it's really dry before we start going over it and shaping it. Doesn't need to be heat set. We're just drying it here. And in fact, we're just trying to stop it from running away. There we go. Okay, let's stop making all the noise. Pop that back on upon our pad. Now this time I'm going to shape it from the back because I want to curl those petals that way, which is going to mean they're going to curl over. And then we're just going to push the middle down, and this will give us a lovely lifting over the petals. If they're not lifting over enough, you can just roll them around your shaping tool. Okay, Okay, let's bring our card back into shot and you start to see how that sits up. And work out where we're going to put it. I reckon about there. Okay, now to adhere it, you can use double-sided tape or glossy accents. I'll use a bit of double-sided tape on this first layer so it sticks really quickly. And I'm only going to need a small amount just for in the centre. There we go, press that in. Flick the backing off that tape. And now we can reposition it where we wanted it. I want it offset from the other petals. We could actually line it up completely with the petals if we like, or we can offset it. Once you're happy with the position, just press that tape down. Now I'm going to use the glossy accents to adhere my littler piece, both because it's easier to get it on small areas, but it does give a really good stick and it dries reasonably quickly when you're just using it as an adhesive. So I can just add some little dots of this. And place that down in the middle. Now I've got a few minutes before it dries to be able to just manoeuvre that around, make sure it's exactly where I want it. And I reckon those fronds are going to look fantastic if we pop a bit of glitter on them. Just press that down. So I'm going to get a little bit of the Mermaid tail glitter. It's got pinks and purples. And we're just going to pick up the ends of those fronds. So just give me a bit of a squeeze, get it going. And I'm going to pick up a little bit on our other, just on the edges of our other petals as well. This will really make this flower stand out. So I'm actually squeezing the stickles and moving the nozzle around so I just get a highlight. I don't want big blobs of it. I want it spread out so we just get hints of that lovely glitter in there. Then we're going to grab some pearls. And our room was a bit cold this morning, so I've been warming the pearls up by having them in my pocket. Otherwise they tend to leave too much of a tail. Now let's put on some of the taffy, which is really, really nice. If you get that one, taffy. Oh, that's a bit shiny, isn't it? You can't really sort of see it. Anyway, we'll squeeze that on in some little pearls. Try to not touch the nozzle to the card. Try and just touch the pearl itself. And having warmed that up, that's behaving itself much better. And I want to put a little bit of hydrangea in there as well, which is this lovely colour. So I'm going to pop that in between those ones. And we might just add, go back to the taffy colour. I'm just going to add some to the middles of these flowers. Just 3, usually doing an odd number looks good for little accents. And just a little trail up here. And there's our card. We move it onto the black so it's going to look a little bit better. So you can see how soft those inks look and how lovely it is once you layer those petals up. Okay, thanks for watching today. So I'm going to be doing a few more in a series with the Versamagic Chalk inks because they're so lovely to work with. So have a look on our YouTube channel. You'll see others with the quilt stamp set and the pairs and a few things like that. So we'll be doing a series that showcases how gorgeous these inks are and what some of the different effects are that you can get with them. But that shows you using the stenciling, layering the same colour over the top of each other to give it a stronger impression the second time, as well as using it to the fullest with that little petal set of stamps. Okay, thanks for watching and being with us. We'll see you next time round. Bye.